Hi, everybody. Welcome. I am really excited today to be speaking with another one of our 3 row beneficiaries, Railroad Street Youth Project, located in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. And I'd love to introduce you to Sabrina, who's going to share with us who she is. If you could share your name and your pronoun, what your position is at Railroad Street, and then we'll spend a little bit of time sharing with our WAMily everything about what Railroad Street is and how being a WAM beneficiary for ROE is going to help the impact of your work.
Excellent. Thank you, Kristen. So my name is Sabrina Allard. I go by she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm the Deputy Director at Railroad Street Youth Project.
Awesome. Thank you so much for carving out time to talk with us today. Some people who are listening might know about Railroad Street, but some people might not. So I'd love for you to just share with us, like, what lights you up about being the Deputy Director at Railroad Street?
So I've been with Railroad Street 4 years now, and I started out as the mentoring coordinator and then moved into the Director of Empowerment, and since COVID just took on this new role as Deputy Director. Wow. So there's a lot that lights me up about being the Deputy Director, but just about being in this organization in general. What lights me up about this new current role that I'm in is really being able to be a part of this big picture in South County of what's happening, whether that's through the coalitions or through like our sexual health education program, getting to really be a bigger part of this mentoring and youth operational board picture. So it's being able to sit at tables and having that voice and really carving out spaces for youth to have that voice. That lights me up. And then just what lights me up about being here in general is that I feel it completely empowered when I see a youth voice shine. Like when we see the development of a young person walking into Railroad Street who maybe comes in like, I don't know what this place is, I'm feeling a little bit shy, maybe they come in a little bit quiet, and within months to see the growth and development of a young person then starting to like utilize their own voice and really understand the power of their own voice, that lights me up. Watching young people find that inner strength, find that inner power, and just like shine out there in the community, that is the coolest part of this entire position.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful. And it is, unfortunately, Railroad Street is quite unique in the way that the youth have a leadership voice. They are at the table having ownership over how things work. Could you just before we share some stories, could you just give us a brief overview of like the different arms of Railroad Street and how the youth is intertwined and how programs are built and how they function?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's quite a few different arms of this organization, and there's a really big breadth of work. I think really at the heart of that and at the center of that, and really what our mission being youth-led is our Youth Operational Board. And so our Youth Operational Board is comprised of young people from high school up until transitional age of 25, where weekly they lead a meeting and they are going through proposals that are brought forth by young people to make cool things happen. That's their motto. So they fund programs, they fund ideas, projects out there that youth really want to see happen. So that could be anything from a young person wanting to create a CD, or one of the most recent ones that was just so inspiring to see was a young person really wanting to have a voice and make a statement when it came to Black Lives Mattering. And so she created a mural that just got put up in Great Barrington that was honoring those lost, but that was also honoring Black joy. Yes. And that was fully funded by YOB. And the other part of what YOB does is that YOB is really there to champion and empower these projects that go on. And then Railroad Street also helps to provide mentorship in there. So that's YOB. And then speaking of mentorship, mentoring is another huge part of what we do. In our mentoring program, we look at pairing young people with adults on one-on-one mentorships that are really interest-based. So these are interest-based matches. And then we also have group programs that are out there. It goes into apprenticeship programs where we are really looking at helping young people develop skills in areas of interest that they have. And the coolest part about that is that it may be something that they really want to do in life, that they're super passionate about like cooking. Maybe it's our culinary program, or maybe it's that they just want to test it out and they want to see, these are a lot of folks who are in high school who they want to check out cosmetology before they sign up for a cosmetology course or decide to go to a school for that. So it really allows young people to test different skills out there. It allows them to test different pathways. So that's really where our apprenticeships shine. And then we get into sex ed, which is really how we met this family. And our sexual health education program, we're getting out to about 200 to 250 students down here in South County, going into 3 now different schools in this area, to really teach a comprehensive sexual health education to 9th graders. Actually, in some of our schools, it starts as early as 6th graders. So, between that, and also it even goes out broader where we have been doing coalition work.
Yeah.
And specifically coalition work in terms of health and wellness for young people. And that's another area where young people are leading in that. We have youth interns who lead this monthly meeting, and it's a collaborative effort within this community, bringing in other community partners. There's other kind of offshoot programs where we're really looking at sitting at tables, talking about the opioid crisis. We have a skate park. So right now that's really been our summer activity, where we have this skate park and we have skate park attendants who are out there just, either teaching people how to skate or just teaching people how to be responsible in this time of COVID. Yeah. But really the main thing is, and what is tied to our mission, is that our programs arise when there is a need from youth. So when we have young people saying, you know what, we really want to see, like our clubs, for example, we really want a book club. Then we had a young person who went out and started a book club, and they immediately started reading Moby Dick. And so the programs aren't based on what Railroad Street staff are saying young people need. It's really coming out of what the youth in this community are saying they want to see and what they need to see in their communities.
Words of wisdom for all of us to take in, right? Like that is the future that we all can hopefully work towards, and engage with. Thank you for giving us that extraordinary overview of everything that Railroad Street is doing. It's just amazing. Can you
probably more as well? I might have missed a couple things.
Probably other things, and we will circle back to the sex ed, because that's particularly what is connected to our digital production of ROE. But before we do that, like you mentioned the story of the mural. Is there another story of impact from being at that organization, and working there, that you would like to share with us?
There's so many stories when I think about impact, but I'm going to think back to most recently, and especially because we're in this time of a pandemic, and as an organization, we really looked at having to pivot what our programs look like. And so a story of impact that I really wanted to share just came out of a culinary program that just happened online. So obviously not something that we usually do. Our culinary programs usually happen in our local restaurants like John Andrews or the Tap House in West Stockbridge, where we're in the kitchen. Young people are in the kitchen with a mentor chef, and that's how it generally goes. This time we had to think a little bit more out of the box, and our apprenticeship coordinator um, actually ended up reaching out to a former RSYP culinary student.
Mm.
So this was somebody who, when they were in high school, they took culinary. She's now a chef out in California. Her name is Kirsten Thorne. And so she joined this culinary apprenticeship this summer, which just happened actually back in August, and really helped and actually worked with one of our youth interns. And they created a meal plan for 4 weeks. And it was so exciting because they're creating this meal plan every single week. And then we had staff who went out and went grocery shopping, picking out all of the different items that were on this meal, and got together enough items for a family of 4, and then went out and delivered those items.
Wow.
So what would happen then is that this guest mentor chef, Kirsten, would come on and on Zoom, we're using these platforms now,
Yeah.
was able to work with each student in their own home as they made their own meals for their families.
Oh my goodness.
It was so exciting on so many different levels. One, because we were helping to feed people. I mean, that was the coolest thing. And I'll tell you, the first meal that they made was salmon. They made a salmon dinner. And they made like a 3-course meal dinner. This isn't just like, spaghetti and meatballs. They went there. They made shrimp tacos.
Wow.
But the coolest part was just this full circle of watching this impact of what this program does, where you have somebody who took this in high school.
Wow.
This ended up being her life path. And then she ended up giving back. And that's what we see happen here, is that there's this level of mentorship that happens where, because young people know the impact that it made on themselves, we often see them come back. We often see our mentees who were mentees come back to be mentors.
Yeah.
And so that to me, that story right now is just resonating so deeply, because I just see this like full circle progression of what empowerment really does. Empowerment's this word that we put out there, but empowerment is really when somebody like can take that inner energy and give that back.
Yes.
And so that was a really cool one to say.
Oh, yes. And it does actually resonate for me also, because I'm doing all this reading about reproductive justice and reproductive politics, and, what that looks like, which looks like such a deep investment over a long period of time, and exactly the cycle and the circle that you're talking about, that's where reproductive justice is its most impactful, is when there is that kind of when you are able to come full circle over multiple generations, and that's only when it happens. So that resonates on such a huge level, connected to this as well. So thank you. I love that image of them over Zoom with Kirsten making salmon for their family. What a special, meaningful moment, across so many levels.
Yeah.
So you mentioned briefly the sex ed, and that is, what the funds from ROE are going to go towards, helping you train more sex ed educators and be able to access more students. I remember when I first interviewed you all about your project that I was really taken aback by learning that I believe you are the sex ed provider for South County. Is that correct?
We are. Yes.
Let's sit for a second.
I know.
Right?
It's a big breadth of work. It truly is. Because our goal really is to reach all of the 9th graders in particular, in really the 2 biggest school districts. But then that branched out to our local early college as well, Simon's Rock, and being able to work with them. But that in itself is so impactful, to be able to, and again, this is a program that started because young people came to us and said, hey, you know what? We don't have anything for sexual health education. We're not being taught this. We need to know how to keep ourselves safe. We need to know how to keep ourselves protected. We need to know what healthy and unhealthy relationships look like. And so that's really the scope of what we're out there teaching is, we start from the reproductive system, going into sexual orientation, and really talking about the full spectrum. And sometimes this is the first time that students have actually heard, and for some students have actually been validated that wherever they are at in that spectrum is okay. And so that in itself is so powerful. And then we get into things like preventing STIs, and then we get into things like how do you prevent early pregnancy, so pregnancy prevention. We talk about effective condom use, and actually go through that. What does effective condom use look like? And we're using the terms, we're using the real terms of anatomy. We're not sugarcoating anything. This is a vetted curriculum that we use through Get Real, through the Planned Parenthood program. And so it's a full scope. Now, what we're hearing and we're getting more feedback on is that juniors and seniors are really needing something. They're needing an extension of this education by the time, because as we're talking to freshmen, many of them are not sexually active at that point. And a lot of them are just kind of like, oh my gosh, I don't want to hear this, right. They're not there yet, but that's the point of why we teach it at that age or even younger, is because this is preventative work.
Yes.
So, but what we are hearing and we're really listening to is we're listening to young people saying, that was great. We got all of this information as freshmen, but now we're later on in high school where we actually are in the midst of this.
Right.
And now we need to know even more because now we're Googling. Yes. And so that's really the next step that we're looking at as a team and as an organization of what does that look like then for folks who are getting older and who are starting to become more sexually active. How do we help support them?
Yes. Yes. And I believe you told me that it's an elective after school type of education that parents and students elect into. So it's not a required thing for them to do. Is that true? Like the students and the families elect to do this program?
Well, so to a point. So for the freshmen, and it's also dependent upon the school, but this is really through their wellness curriculum. Yeah. So for one school in particular, it's we're reaching the students who are in the PE classes.
Right.
And so that's a part of their PE curriculum.
Great. Yep.
Or it's a part of another school, it's a part of their wellness curriculum. Yeah. But it is elective in the sense that not every ninth grader is signed up for PE.
Gotcha.
And so as the model has been, we haven't been able to reach every single ninth grader because of that. Yeah. But there's been some changes going into this new school year with a couple of the schools in South County, and one in particular who is really expanding their wellness curriculum to make sure that all ninth graders can get through this program.
Oh, great. And just for folks who might be watching who don't live in the Berkshires, Berkshire County is separated into like North County, Central County, South County. So Railroad Street really provides the service for this down in South County. So before we started rolling, you were telling me about something you were thinking of as a challenge in this time of COVID. Why don't you share with us what you think the greatest challenge is that you think you are encountering at this time going into this new school year?
Yeah, so the greatest challenge, of course, in these times of COVID is we will no longer be able to be in the classroom this year teaching sex ed. And so how we have run this program before is that this is a 10-session course. And that could take anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks of teaching in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And without that access, we're really having to reimagine what this course could look like. So right now, our team is going through the process of bringing this program that we usually teach face-to-face online. Mm. And, luckily, we have resources like Planned Parenthood and that program that have already started thinking about this. Mm-hmm. but we're bringing on some new teammates to train. So we have new folks that are getting trained in the fall who are going to start teaching for the first time as well. And their experience is going to be teaching for the first time online. And so, it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that we're up to task for, because that is one thing that we did here was folks in the spring who missed this course because of the pandemic starting. They missed that course, and that was something that they really needed.
Yes.
And so we're hearing that need, and we're trying to adapt.
Yeah.
Like so many organizations, we're just looking at ways to adapt and to be flexible, and how do we relook at and reimagine what this could be when you have people who are on the other end, who aren't in a classroom. So it's a challenge for sure.
But yeah, hopefully, like the other things we're all discovering, there'll be some unexpected, to use a really overused, silver linings. But even for us, we think normally during a production, we have one talk back with the beneficiaries. And so the audience of that evening gets to hear more about the beneficiaries. And the rest of the audiences, they get the blog or they get the poster in the lobby. But now this weird benefit is, anybody who's coming to the show is going to have access to this video. People who are considering coming to the show will have access to it. And we're like, why wouldn't we have done this all the time leading up to this, and then like shared videos. So there's some odd, and maybe for some folks who are, doing this around sex ed, it'll provide a barrier that allows them to feel more safe or brave, or who knows?
Yeah.
We connect in a few months and you can share with me just how it went.
Yeah, we'll give you some updates, but that's a really good perspective of, it might really allow people to, because without peers there, that's the other part of this process, is that people get so affected by having their peers in the classroom with them and learning this sort of sensitive information amongst their peers who may not share the same ideas, especially about sexual orientation. This really will allow a student to be in the privacy of wherever they are to take in this information, possibly in a different way.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear how being a beneficiary for WHAM and for this production of ROE, how you feel that will hopefully be of service to the work that you're already doing.
I think the biggest thing is really just getting this out there and normalizing sexual health education in the first place.
Yeah.
Not every school has this. Not every area has this. And so for Berkshire County, this, it is pretty bold to have such a comprehensive program like this. So thinking about the benefits of joining with WHAM and with this Whamily is getting more of that information out there, letting people know that there are programs like this. And then the other part is that, we're an organization who really appreciates collaborating in community and getting to know community partners and getting to know, getting to know more about, I learned more about what WHAM is doing just from being in this partnership. And I think the more we know about what other organizations are doing and the beautiful work that's out there, the more we can figure out ways where we can de-silo and continue to partner in the future. So I just see this as such a benefit, because, there'll probably be young people that I hope show up to this show, right, and that know about this show, and that go, oh wow, there's a play about a topic that, wow, nobody talks about. This is so taboo, right? And to lift that, and to lift the taboos, and to really just normalize what is so normal.
Exactly. Yes. And we also recognize at WHAM that because of the pandemic and COVID and, people's lives, that we probably will be unable to make as large a donation as we have in the past. So we're hoping that by sharing these videos and by putting a donate button to the Railroad Street Youth Project, that people listening who are moved by this, you know, will press the button and support all the work that Railroad Street Youth and the other ROE beneficiaries are the work that they're doing, and that we can be stronger together in that way also, because, you know, the fact of the matter is that we all need money to do what we're doing. And there is still so much money out there, you know, although there are so many who are facing hardship, there are so many millions of dollars being donated to political campaigns and various other things that we're really passionate about. So hopefully for people who are listening, if this is something that really moves you to think about the students receiving this education, click that donate button and help them out.
Yes, and we're so grateful for that, because we don't always have the places to be able to talk about the work that we're doing. So thank you.
So Sabrina, we've covered a lot, and hopefully people are, you know, their minds and hearts are filled with, you know, new information and lots of stuff to think about. Is there anything else that you want us to know about your work or the organization that we haven't touched on?
I mean, I think the thing that I'd really just love to uplift is listening to youth voice. Yeah. It's, you know, that is the heart of this organization. This organization was started by a young person. This was started by a 19-year-old who saw a need in her community, who saw friends dying in community and really wanted to see programs wrapped around really helping to prevent and to actually do some preventative work out there. But just to really honor the fact that young people are so brilliant. And we see this, right? We've been seeing this in protests and how our world is changing right now. We need youth voice. And so often as adults, you know, there's a term that we use here at Railroad Street that I learned actually from young people, and it's called adultism. And adultism is this place where we as adults often think that we have all the answers, and we think we know all the things, and we just don't always know all the things as adults. And I have learned in these last 4 years so much from young people about compassion, about what it means to actually actively listen to people. Not just like listen so I can say the next thing, but like, what does it mean to actually listen to your story? I learned that from young people. And so that's really, there's so much that this organization gives, but that's really what it highlights, is it really highlights and empowers young people to really hone that voice that they have inside. It's not us. It's like, that's their stuff. But it's really just, we're just here to just be like, we have this container, we see you, we hear you. What do you want to do in this world? And that's the coolest part, is then being able to see people like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. This is who I want to be.
Well, what I and what Wham want to do in this world is just keep shining a light and being a small part of, you know, the extraordinary work that's going on at places like Railroad Street and Sister Song and the Abortion Rights Fund and so many other organizations, and just do our little part in telling stories that hopefully uplift the work that everyone is doing on those front lines of it. So I'm so grateful for your time, Sabrina. Thank you for sharing all those stories and telling us so much more about what Railroad Street does.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Oh, I'm excited to share it all with the Whamily. And I'll look forward to you seeing the play too. That'll be really exciting. Yeah.
I'm excited to see that.
All right. Thank you.